So today, I know I'm pulling these two out. Again, it's a Pathfinder on it, but don't take it as Pathfinder. You guys know my cast by now is not everything Pathfinder. We are going to talk about, and I'm going to title this, the Machiavellian villains. And the reason I say that, Machiavellian, and again, Machiavellians don't necessarily have to be horrific villains. They are about intrigue and webs of intrigue and webs of different lies and tales and twists and turns. If you guys remember, if you guys have ever read about Machiavelli, Machiavelli was the monk that basically did a whole study of the Borgias. And the Borgias were a nasty, nasty bunch. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. The television shows do it somewhat justice. I think they were much worse than the TV shows even put on there for the Borgias. The Borgias were a family that were committed to seeing their family get their just deserved rewards. And their patriarch became Pope of Papal Rome. And so you want to talk about a family that was steeped in intrigue, in mystery, in religion, and using religion for the wrong reasons. That's the Machiavelli book where it talks about the Borgias. And so I'm going to talk about creating villains that have that kind of staying power and that kind of twisty-turny, intriguey kind of tilt to them. Now again, in most adventures, we pick villains that are a lot like, let me show you the villain codex. We pick the brutes, the ones that want to beat the life out of you, or let's say ones like this that are the nasty, monstrous, horrific, anti-paladin, Star-Lord, what's Drax? Not Drax the Destroyer, but, my boy that's in the new Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and it's going to be in the Infinity Wars. God, he's the Skrull nasty of the bunch. So, again, we pick these brutish, nasty, bulk, beat the life out of you, massive army type of villains. Because why? Our characters love to defeat them. They love a great combat. They love just massive amount of combat that at the end they walk away the victor. That's not a Machiavellian villain. A Machiavellian villain is one that often is in the shadows. That, yes, in the forefront, they become this ruler, but they do everything behind the scenes. They are about twists and turns, and using intrigue, and using subterfuge, and using false rumors and allegations to bring down whole legitimate rulers and empires. So as we talk about this, and again, mind you, my camera's, sorry, I'll come down here so it looks at me a little bit better. Mind you, we try to form these type of villains. We think, God, will it really keep our players enticed into the campaign? And the answer is yes. I love, out of the Hell's Rebels, the new villain there. He is very Machiavellian in his design. I'm not going to give away everything. I'm just going to say he's Machiavellian. A Machiavellian villain. So let me give you a perfect Machiavellian villain. And we're going to do either superheroes or future right now. Don't get me wrong. We'll go back to the fantasy portion. But for those of you doing other campaigns, it could be a cult leader. So let's take Numenera, the Ninth World. It could be a knowledge cult leader that wants to use this knowledge to basically expand his boundaries and controls of his church of knowledge to gain more followers and people that will pay more money and raise more funds and bring more tech in so that he can try to learn and use it for the influence of his or her own empire. So mind you, this would be someone like a Brainiac or a Megamind. There we go. I love that. Out of the Disney universe, Megamind. That is a Machiavellian villain right there. And they're all about using the plots, the intrigues, the knowledge, the influence to bring down those that oppose them. They're subtle in how they do it. Sometimes they're ruthless, but they don't necessarily lift a finger of their own to give the killing blow. They use other resources to get that done. They're not going to dirty their own hands doing the mission that they want to do. So, this could be someone that is a smuggling lord in the future that's doing a smuggling ring. And so his smuggler pirates are trying to bring down the legitimacy of an imperium. And so he starts to change, or let's go with the she. She starts to change her ways and become more subtle and basically gather rumors and information about their opponents. And she uses this information to buy off officials and get people behind her that then start rumors about the current legitimate ruler. They're false rumors, but there are enough truth tied into them that they begin to undermine the very support this ruler has, to the point of where the very citizenry begin to question the legitimacy of their ruler. And after a while, they call for the ouster of said ruler, the impeachment of said ruler. And so, whether it's true or not, they're spinning the webs of lies. And it doesn't matter. There's people coming forward, false witness after false witness, claiming they see this or this happened or that happened. And they're all paid witnesses that are somehow agents in the employ of this woman, Piratess. And all of a sudden, she comes in as the savior of the empire, bringing down the very fabric of the one that is in ruling power. You see how Machiavellian it is? And really, it goes after. It doesn't matter. She sees her cause as just because she deserves to be in power, ruling these peant little following people of the empire. She deserves her turn. And so she's going to take it. Hey, bug. So that's what they do. They try to do these things. Yes. I'm doing GM tips. Okay. See, she knows. She loves it. Has got to love her. She's my little helper. So, this is what they're doing. And again, how do the players deal with such a Machiavellian, not-in-your-face person? Because, see, if they go in there and try to take her by force, they look like they're part of an illegitimate ruler's thug brigade. So now you can't just walk in and draw your swords and take her out. Because all of a sudden now you just all the more put in her legitimacy about her position that she should be ruling the empire. So to counter this, you set up encounters and different things that are based around gathering the truth and counter information. So it's counter-espionage. So now you're starting to use things like gather information, which is used in many systems. It's diplomacy in some, it's bluff in the others, but it's gathering information. So the party has to go out and make successful challenge rating checks to gather that information and maybe gather some real truths of what the real plot and plan is. They have to pay bribes. They have to do other things to get back the ground that legitimate ruler lost, and to undermine the very fabric of that piratess lord, because otherwise she's going to win, right? So how you structure it is you structure your campaign with a villain that is very heavily armed with bluff, knowledges, diplomacy, intimidate, and perception, sense motive. Not necessarily having every other skill, but these are social class skills that she is using to gain power. And so will her allies. So the other baddies, the minor baddies, have the same type of thing. Oh, yes, there's maybe an assassin or thug brigade that is more martial and physical. But the majority of her followers aren't. They're about doing subtle things. So that's what you got to see as you're doing this. You have to develop a subtleness that's very different than anything you're going to be used to. So keep that in mind as you're writing this out. You have to do challenges then that are based on overcoming social combat. And you do awards of experience just like physical combat, but they're for each step of the social combat. So now it's skill checks. Now experience is earned through skill checks or advancement or boons or other type of things that you award your players with. And I love this type of intrigue because what it does is it forces players in a good way to realize there's more than just drawing your sword or drawing your dagger or drawing your laser pistol or drawing your musket or drawing your steam-powered machine gun or your flamethrower to get things done, or using fisticuffs or martial arts to get things done. Now you have to do things. You remember in Iron Fist, if you've seen the new Iron Fist series, Danny tried to solve all things martially. What did not Hydra, but I'm trying to think of the enemy group. What did the enemy group do? They used subterfuge. They used drugs. They used other types of trade to undermine Danny. They even influenced his perceptions and drugged him and did other things. So combat didn't work. Combat was not what got things to work the right way. And so you had to see that in doing all the things that you're doing, you now have to use the same tactics and techniques. Physical force wouldn't get it done. The Iron Fist didn't get everything done. Danny had to think on his feet. He had to find information. He had to expose plots. And even then, he wasn't guaranteed anything would go his way. And it didn't, because he kept trying to use brute force. So now you're getting your players to really think outside the box. They've got to choose feats and skills that are about social. They got to use linguistics and forgery and other things to very undermine and expose this criminal element that doesn't use brute force all the time. They use what they know. They use rumors. They use frame-ups. They use putting the wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time, posing things, taking pictures, having people catch and expose people in an illegitimate act to undermine the very fabric of the legitimate government and the good that's in that realm. So maybe it's a cleric of Pharasma. You know, she's trying to get things done, and all of a sudden this piratess exposes her, and now she's lost all belief of her faith in her flock that she's legitimate, including the clerics under her, who think, oh my gosh, she's this corrupt individual. So now she's lost any legitimacy to help the party. So keep in mind as you're doing this, you're now taking the battle socially and morally and ethically to the leaders of the good side. And you're not doing it physical combat where they're used to. You're using social realms and social skills. So when you plot these kind of campaigns, you have a lot of ideas you can use here. And you have to think Machiavellian. So you have to think about, if I'm going to take down these legitimate figures, what is the villainess or villain going to do? How are they going to do this? What stages are they going to do? And then these become the very things that the party has to undo to get things righted. They have to, one rumor at a time, turn it as it's false. This was done this way. This was staged. This happened. This happened. So now you're taking away the power of the villain or villainess by exposing the truth of the situation. And you imagine how much fun that is. Even the spells go away from fireballs and lightning bolts to, no alignment, basically a no-lie zone, a zone of truth that's going to expose all the things that they need to find out to get things done the right way. So now all these type of spells center around knowledge and gaining things. Is it as fun? Of course it is. It's a twisty-turny plot and puzzle that you're trying to get your players to think through. Yes, okay, put a few combats in there still. But don't do a lot of martial combat. You don't have to. You can get into verbal debate duels, and there's a whole system in Pathfinder's Ultimate Intrigue that you can import into any system, where it talks about, okay, and it's under the system. It's under the section now here. I love this because they have lots of plots and things. So if you want plots for side things, you can look in here. But they have a whole section on mastering intrigue that you go into. And there is chapter 4, which is social combat. So you look at social conflicts, verbal duels, and skill in the conflict. Those are the very things that are going to help you. And they even have spells that can be converted to your system or to your type of devices, which will help expose the truth. And the villains use spells that subterfuge or camouflage or obfuscate the very things that the players are trying to bring out. So say the players expose a section about this villainess, this piratess villainess. So now they want to go tell the truth. Well, now all of a sudden the main villain has placed people in the crowd that can cast a charm person or a dominate person. They dominate these things around here to say the very things that, oh no, these aren't good guys. I saw them. They're heisting and doing this. They're doing that. They're not the good guys. And all of a sudden, now the combat's back on the players. What are they going to do? Go kill the person? No, because if they do that, they kill an innocent. And so all of a sudden, now it becomes real complicated. I've got a scenario I'm running for Pathfinder Society that whole scenario is around there. There's some combat involved, but it's about bringing out what's really going on because they're trying to sully the name of the Pathfinders in the city and make them into that they're the bad guys. They're the ones cutting off medical food and supplies. They're the ones that are helping the enemies. They want to bring down our empire secretly to unite it with the enemy. And so now this group that's normally considered a decent group is looking really bad. And so how do you get that reputation back? How do you expose what is the reality? And by the way, the enemies are going to continue to try to obfuscate or eliminate the threat. So as you're doing this, it's a constant mental chess match where you are doing one move to one move, counter move, move, counter move, move, counter move. So you've got to set up your campaign with move, counter move, move, counter move. So kind of like, if this happens, then this. If this happens, then this. If that happens, then this. If this happens, then this. So you have to really work at doing that. And you're going to have to write out a lot of plots, subplots, charts with results, other things. And this is kind of fun because now you've taken your campaign where you've been there and done it 1,000 times and added new twists and new type of results. The Ultimate Tree can help you with a lot of those results. And again, you don't have to necessarily buy the book. I have it, I own it, and I have the PDF, but you can get it on the Paizo website at the PRD and use it in your campaign. This is what I say. Great material can be used system to system to system. That's what I love about it. And I'm all about the mental gymnastics of trying to figure out how to bring the enemy or the villain down. Because here's the point. It's much more difficult to do, but there's a sense of achievement when you accomplish it. It's not about pulling a sword and seeing if I'm tougher than this one. It's about, oh, now we got this thing going on here. Oh, snap. What are we going to do here? What are we going to do here? How are we going to counter that? How are we going to deal with this? So you've got to have a lot of challenges throughout your campaign that will deal with this. Maybe they have to go gather information from informants. Maybe they have to build an informant network that tells them what's going on as a counter information group that's trying to find out what's going on with this piratess, because she is doing all this plotting and dissension. You've got to get into her mind. So you have to have allies. So you're buying off some of her pirates, maybe some of her most trusted people, to become your allies for the greater good. So now you're taking something that's a black and white good and evil, and you're doing things for the greater good. So now you're doing some things where you're really influencing the greater good of the situation. That may mean allying your players with some evil that's in the area that is minor evil, because the minor evil is better than the bigger evil in the situation. How do you bring the Borgias down? You've got to get inside their cabal. You have to get in there and influence and find out what's going on day to day. Otherwise, you don't know what elements they're using, how they're using them, what knowledge they really have and they don't. And so all of this comes out and you're exposing these things. So keep that in mind. It's kind of the fun of all of it. I enjoy it. Pretty funny, huh, Bug? So keep in mind, as you're doing these type of things, it's going to take a little more thinking. It's going to take some more of the actual plot stories and what rumors are there, what are they exposing, and how are they exposing them, and what's the truth in the situation. There's going to be a lot of determining of that, but it's going to be well worth it at the end. So keep that in mind as you're doing these type of campaigns. It makes it fun. It gives it a new element to it. It gives new twists, new ways to award rewards to the party. Maybe it's not always monetary. Maybe some of the rewards are monetary, and the fact that the ruler gives them money, or whoever the legitimate rulers, to try to help continue to expose the truth. And so they'll give them special spells, scrolls, other aid, allies, networks, boons, things they can buy with prestige points. Maybe it's a membership to a secret society. So like the Never Sleeping Eye, or the Esoteric Order of the Palatine Eye. So you got all these different things going on that the party can be a part of, that are kind of watchguard groups that make sure that these Machiavellian groups don't take over the world, or the star system, or the Imperium, or the Empire, or the Metropolis. Again, usable across multiple systems. Again, not necessarily fantasy-oriented, but it's a neat dive in looking at things a little bit different. If you haven't used your Machiavellian villains, please do, because it'll give a new flair for your players. It'll give them something different. It gives them a Moriarty to their homes, and it makes it a lot of fun at the same time. Thanks again. I hope you enjoy this GM tips. It's a little bit different ideas today, and it gives you a little bit different things to work with. Thanks again for tuning in.